This is Land of Havilah, Leviticus 17. Coming up, 9 verses with one very clear theme, which is that there shall be no sacrifices except to Yahweh at the tabernacle. Verse 1. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and to his sons and to all the children of Israel, and say to them, This is the thing which Yahweh has commanded. Whatever man there is of the house of Israel who kills a bull or lamb or goat in the camp, or who kills it outside the camp, and hasn't brought it to the door of the tent of meeting to offer it as an offering to Yahweh before Yahweh's tabernacle, blood shall be imputed to that man. He has shed blood, and that man shall be cut off from among his people. This is to the end that the children of Israel may bring their sacrifices, which they sacrifice in the open field, that they may bring them to Yahweh to the door of the tent of meeting to the priest, and sacrifice them for sacrifices of peace offerings to Yahweh. The priest shall sprinkle the blood on Yahweh's altar at the door of the tent of meeting and burn the fat for a pleasant aroma to Yahweh. They shall no more sacrifice their sacrifices to the goat idols, after which they play the prostitute. This shall be a statute forever to them throughout their generations. You shall say to them, Any man there is of the house of Israel, or of the strangers who live as foreigners among them, who offers a burnt offering or sacrifice and doesn't bring it to the door of the tent of meeting to sacrifice it to Yahweh, that man shall be cut off from his people. Comment in verse 5, Yahweh says, individuals have been sacrificing animals in the open field. In verse 7, some Israelites have been sacrificing to, quote, the goat idols after which they play the prostitute, end quote. It seems they should know better after all the mighty things Yahweh did to deliver them from Egypt and the ongoing miracles He's been giving them in the desert. But the Israelites will continue their idolatry off and on throughout the Exodus and for hundreds more years through the periods of Judges and Kings. In verse 7, Yahweh likens idolatry to prostitution, as a prostitute chases after multiple men in hopes of profiting from them. Israel chases after multiple gods in hopes of profiting from them. But Yahweh's jealous, as He said when He delivered the 10 Commandments. He demands fidelity. Therefore, in fidelity to Yahweh and to His law, in verses 1 to 9 we just read, Israel should present sacrifices to Yahweh only and only at the tabernacle. There shall be no more freelance sacrificing to Yahweh, and certainly not to any idols. Now coming 5 verses on the theme, you shall eat no blood. Verse 10, Any man of the house of Israel or of the strangers who live as foreigners among them who eats any kind of blood, I will set my face against that soul who eats blood, and will cut him off from among his people. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I've given it to you on the altar to make atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that makes atonement by reason of the life. Therefore I've said to the children of Israel, No person among you may eat blood, nor may any stranger who lives as a foreigner among you eat blood. Whatever man there is of the children of Israel or of the strangers who live as foreigners among them, who takes in hunting any animal or bird that may be eaten, he shall pour out its blood and cover it with dust. For as to the life of all flesh, its blood is with its life. Therefore I said to the children of Israel, You shall not eat the blood of any kind of flesh, for the life of all flesh is in its blood. Whoever eats it shall be cut off. Comment in verses 10 to 14, You shall eat no blood. In verse 11, quote, It's the blood that makes atonement by reason of the life, end quote. The ultimate outworking of this would be that Christ's blood would make atonement for man and give him abundant everlasting life. In Yahweh's point of view, abstaining from blood was ultimately about respecting that blood that He would give Himself. In the New Covenant, God's declared all food and drink to be clean, Luke 11:14 and Romans 14:20. But we should temper that statement by noting the apostles' instructions to the Antiochian Gentiles that they shouldn't eat blood, Acts 15:29. It could be a divisive theological issue for Christians about eating blood, except for that, for the most part, Christians have no interest in eating blood. Now, to round out this short chapter, 2 verses about finding an animal carcass that died of itself or from animal attack. Verse 15, Every person that eats what dies of itself, or that which is torn by animals, whether he is native born or a foreigner, he shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. Then he shall be clean. But if he doesn't wash them or bathe his flesh, then he shall bear his iniquity. Comment verses 15 and 16, Israelites in the desert could eat what died of itself, but should wash their clothes, bathe in water, and they would be unclean until the evening. However, 40 years later, Yahweh tightened it up that Israelites should no longer eat that which died of itself. Deuteronomy 14:21. Maybe it was a difference between the scarcity of food in the desert other than manna and the abundance of it in the promised land. Leviticus 18 is next.